connections, where all who come with open minds and kind hearts are welcome. My name is Mary Tislow, and I'm pleased to be your service leader today. I'm joined this morning by our Zoom host, Annette Watlington, our live music by Penny Brewster, our sanctuary support team, Warren Riley, Bruce Bransma, and Becky Thorndike, and our greeter, Bonnie Bramlett. For those in the sanctuary, for the common good, those in the sanctuary are required to be fully vaccinated and boosted and are required to wear a mask other than one to reduce any risks. There's also a bowl for donations at the entry. Our hymns this morning will be 304 and 343 in the gray hymnal if you'd like to follow along. Are there any other announcements on Zoom?
None that I can see, Mary.
Thank you, Annette. Any other announcements here in the sanctuary? Wonderful. Please be sure to check the UU View for opportunities to be together, and we use the same link that we used this morning on Zoom. Our fellowship is a light for liberal religion in the mountains that values diversity and the richness it brings to our community. Our celebration of diversity is reflected in the variety of our Sunday services. Today, we welcome back Reverend Dr. Kate Greysen with a sermon titled Back to Basics, A Return to Faith. We hope today's service enriches your journey. Our opening words this morning are from Reverend Paige Getty. Our fourth principle, we affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. In her essay about our fourth principle in the book, The 7 Principles in Word and Worship, Reverend Paige recounts what she told her grandmother when she chose Unitarian Universalism at the age of 24. She said the church offered her the explicit freedom to believe as she chose. Her essay narrates her journey to ordination and beyond, and then she finishes with, "Today, my answer to my grandmother about why I chose Unitarian Universalism would be different than when I first joined this faith. I was initially drawn to the freedom it offered. Now I am challenged and rewarded by its charge to be a responsible seeker of authentic truth. And so I am a UU, a person of religious conviction who freely seeks truth wherever it may be found. Through ancient and contemporary texts, through the earth's natural wisdom, and through my own wisdom and natural insight, and who strives to responsibly enliven that truth in my every word and deed. May my life be a genuine embodiment of that faith." Our chalice lighting is by Reverend Rachel Naomi Remen. We are all here to grow in wisdom and learn how to love better. As we each do this in our own ways, we slowly become a blessing to those around us and a light to the world. We are delighted to have live music today from our own Penny Brewster. Our opening hymn is number 304 in the gray hymnal, A Fierce Unrest, if you'd like to follow along.
A fierce unrest sees at the core of all existing things. It was the eager wish to soar that gave the gods their wings. There throbs through all the worlds that are this heartbeat, hot and strong, and shaken system star by star, awake and glow in song. But for the urge of this unrest, these joyous fears are mute. But for the rebel in our breast, and we remain. When daring hope to hold the restless wish, the instant need, till drove us up the slope. Sing we now govern firmament, ordered, regular. We sing the stinging discontent that leaps from star to star.
Our offering words. What will you take from our worship today? Will it be the message, the music, the inspirational words? And can you share a symbolic part of yourself? All gifts of time, talent, and treasure are deeply appreciated. Our offertory hymn is number 123, Spirit of Life. You're welcome to sing along.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
The dedication of our gifts. Gifts given in love and hope, continuous cycle of love and hope. We are delighted to welcome back our friend, Reverend Dr. Kate Greysen, this morning. Ordained in the fall of 2017, Reverend Kate speaks to issues of communication, self-reflection, identity, and spiritual growth. Her educational background includes an MA in Intercultural Communication and a Ph.D. in Organizational Learning. She teaches communication studies at a local community college and is an independent Science of Mind minister. Throughout her life journey, her path to spiritual growth has always incorporated nature and introspection, whether individually or in community, as she continually expands her awareness of self and others as she expresses her voice. Her sermon this morning is titled Back to Basics, A Return to Faith. Please join me in welcoming back Reverend Kate.
Hi, it's always nice to be back here, and the community's growing again, so that's nice to see too. People coming back together. So we are in some trying and sometimes disturbing times, and I, for one, sometimes feel a little bit overwhelmed and drained. I go places with friends, we go out to dinner, we go kayaking, and we go hiking, and we agree that we're not going to talk about any politics. And it never lasts, never lasts. And I don't start it. I just want to say I don't start it. I think my friends start it, but I jump right in. And the reason that this is important, as you know, is because the personal is political. And everything that we say and how we talk and how we live our lives affect everybody around us. We change our lives when we change our own lives. And as we know, words have power. And when we attach feelings and symbols to them, the words that we use have even more meaning. And this is how we give truth to meaning. And sometimes we agree with the interpretation of others, especially those that we hear on the news or that we're talking with in a restaurant, and sometimes we don't. But either way, these kind of discussions and communications, even with those we love, can be fraught with misunderstandings. One thing I know for sure is that at some point, we have to get back to the basics. And just what those basics are change for everybody, and they're different. When people give us assistance and advice, we listen to that, and sometimes we don't. When someone is depressed or isolating, sometimes our friends will say, get up, just get up. And some other friends will say, get up and get dressed. And another friend will say, get up, make your bed and get dressed, right? Someone else will say, get up, get dressed, make your bed, take a shower first before you get dressed, I guess, and then go to work, right? But the point is to do exactly what you need to do, right? What's right before you go on. It's good advice, it is. I do that anyway. It doesn't matter how depressed I am. I'm one of those people who get up, make my bed, I get dressed. I don't always shower every day. But what I do is sit in front of the TV and I watch movies and, Amazon. I just have been buying every season of Doctor Who. That's a lot. And, I love Doctor Who, but I don't do anything else. And so when this frame of mind happens for me, I find myself getting sick and tired of who I am and just sitting there. And I find myself looking over to my bookcase and at the mystics and at what's gotten me through these difficult times before for the last, 40 or 50 years. And when I'm challenged emotionally, physically, politically, or spiritually, it's these writings of the mystics that begin new thought that bring me back to where I am. Ernest Holmes, of course, because I'm a Science of Mind minister, but there's also all those people that I quote in my talks frequently. Emerson, the Fillmores, Troward, Parent, and Hopkins, and the list goes just on and on. So I thought from my talk, I would take some of the quotes that I have found inspiring and perceptive and see where that takes us today. So let's start with Emerson, Ralph Waldo. Waldo is a great name, and Waldo is what Emerson was known by during his time. He was the central figure of his literary and philosophical group that we know as the American Transcendentalists. They are writers who share a key belief that each individual can transcend or move beyond the physical world of the senses into deeper spiritual connection through our own free will and intuition. In this school of thought, God is not remote and not out there. God is us and themselves. And believers of the American Transcendentalists find themselves in nature, much like Emerson did. And in his essay that's titled Nature, Emerson wrote, "Nature is not always tricked in holiday attire, but by the same scene which yesterday breathed perfume and glittered is overspread with melancholy today. Nature always wears the color of the spirit." Well, I speak of perception frequently in my talks, partly because I have my degree in communication and words are so important. But sometimes I repeat myself in my stories. And what Emerson is saying to us, though, is our feelings determine our perceptions of the world, whether we're in nature or whether we're watching TV or whether we're talking to our friends. The Fillmores, the co-founders of Unity, also often discuss how we perceive circumstances. And one of his most famous quotes, I don't usually seek out, but I find it helpful, is I fairly sizzle with zeal, energy, and enthusiasm, eager to do that which ought to be done by me today. It's a great affirmation. I fairly sizzle, right, with zeal. It's good. I'm not always successful, but here's the point. It's the intent that matters. The quote I do love, though, from Charles Fillmore is more similar to the one by Emerson. He said that the mind is the seat of perception of the things we see, feel, and hear. It is through the mind that we see the beauties of the earth, the sky, music, of art, in fact, of everything. Essentially, what both Emerson and Fillmore are saying is that our world experience is colored by our own thoughts. A friend of mine who lost her son about 2 years ago literally would sit for hours and use a coloring book and crayons. And she would say her world would be colored by her thoughts. And that's what she created. And some of them are quite beautiful, and some of them are very distressing. So a sunny day can be a beautiful day, like today, or it can be a damn hot day, depending on your perception. And it's this awareness of thought and perception that brings us to Troward. Thomas Troward was raised in India by British parents. And when he was 18 to study law. When he was 22, he returned to India and became a probate judge or a civil judge, where he stayed for 25 years. What's important to remember about this is that India has 22 official languages, but it has over 121 languages that are used frequently and interchangeably. And on top of that, there are thousands of regional dialects. And so we find it difficult to communicate between Asheville and Franklin, east and the west, or the north, Minnesota and North Carolina. I try to imagine, even though I'm aware of colonization, what Emerson must have felt when he was living in India as a probate judge, and how he worked through some of those language difficulties. But this is probably why his statements on perception are so amazing. And they require more personal action than some of the others. And as he dealt with property and land disputes, which were often fostered by misunderstandings and miscommunications because of the language. For instance, Troward wrote, relying on the maxim that principle is not bound by precedent, we should not limit our expectations of the future. We are not only able, but also required by the law of our own being to take a more active part in our own personal evolution. And he also stated, all that hinders the individual from exercising the full power of the infinite for any purpose whatsoever is their lack of faith. It's their their inability to realize to the full the stupendous truth that he himself is the very power which he seeks. In this, with many of his words, again, Troward sought to engage us in reflection of our personal power, but to recognize the power it can give us to act and to actively seek change. This brings us to Genevieve Friend. Many of you may know her and others may not. She studied with Thomas Troward. And in fact, though he taught many, many people, she was his only student that he taught in person after he retired and returned to England. And in her book, Your Invisible Power, which is an excellent book, she stated, everything in the world, from the hat on your head to the boots on your feet, has its beginning in mind and comes into existence in exactly the same manner. All are projected thoughts. They are personal advance and evolution depends on your use of power of visualizing, and your use of it depends on whether you recognize that you yourself are a particular center through and in which that originating spirit finds new expression. So again, we're talking about the same things. This is evolution. Whether we're sitting on the sofa watching TV or we're still laying in bed at like 11:30 in the morning, we haven't quite gotten up yet. It's a stage. And each stage is necessary for the next stage to develop. And again, for personal change and evolution to occur, action is required. If we simply stay put and experience life with no vision and no self-reflection, then the change we experience is simply more of the same. If we're bored, we get more bored. If we're angry, we get more angry. If we're happy, we become more happy. That which we focus on expands and affects everyone and everything around us. So that brings us to Emma Curtis Hopkins. She was an American spiritual author and leader. She's a theologian, a teacher, a writer, a feminist, and a mystic. Hopkins wrote several books that she's called the teacher of teachers, and some argue that she was the founder of the New Thought movement. Many of her students went on to become prominent leaders within New Thought. Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of Science of Mind. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, who founded Unity. Emily Cady, who wrote Lessons in Truth, the textbook for Unity. And Hopkins discovered how we identify and interpret what is said to us and done to us through her identification of three primary concepts. First is the literal interpretation, which is known as the letter of the law or the letter of the word. This is where we hear something and we take it, whether it's the meaning of scripture or the news or our friends, and we take it word for word and we believe it. That's the letter of the word. How many of you have done that and found it to be faulty? Well, that's the first step. First, we listen and we hear what's called the letter of the word. Then the second is what's called the mental interpretation. And this is where a little bit more action is required, because this is where we analyze and metaphorically strive to understand the meaning behind the letter of the word. I often get that wrong as well. But this is also where Hopkins would form affirmations and declarations, depending on what she was seeking. We do that in order to achieve what we want. And the third is our spiritual understanding, which is simply knowing that all we have to do is to just be. Emma Curtis Hopkins believed that it is with spiritual illumination, everything needed for life comes to you without effort, simply by recognizing the I am. But here's the catch. We don't create anew, we create what we already believe. And I think I've said before, I have a refrain that runs through my head at times, and it comes up in different ways, and it's that I am poor, that my friends don't like me, and that I'm unlikable. So I'm poor, I'm unlikable, and I'm getting old. And it just comes up all the time. Like I'll be talking, and the other day I was hiking with a friend, and she said, you know, I've heard you say that you're old today and that you're kind of lacking in money. You might want to rephrase how you're talking about yourself. And that's my refrain since I was little. I've been always that way. And so what we believe is the truth, and how we frame it is also our truth. And we affect people by how we frame who we are. People believe what we tell them about ourselves, and we teach people how to treat us by what we say. So Hopkins asserted that whatever we want or desire, health, wealth, relationships, or self-expression is already here. We need only to bring it to our awareness. And for Hopkins, that was declaring the great I am. I am the power and the glory. I am that which I seek. I know that I am God. Be aware and accept something greater. The evidence of our spiritual connection is your good. And Hopkins believed that our good in our world is our God because we created it. All of the mystics and all of the teachers that I've talked about here today say the same thing. It's our intention or interpretation of the words that we use that provides the meaning we attach to the circumstances at any given moment in our lives. And it's noted on the Unitarian Universalist main website, as an open-minded, open-hearted spiritual community, help people lead lives of justice, love, learning, and hope, with a shared covenant or principle that supports the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. That's so powerful. This awareness could not be more important to our futures than it is right now. With so much that we hear about conflicts and struggles in the world and in our lives and coming into our daily thoughts all the time, we need to stay focused on who we are. We need to stay focused on the I am. Our real job is to see it through to the other side. Charles Fillmore wrote, "It is the law of spirit that we must be that which we would draw to us. If we would draw to us love, we must be loved. If we would have peace and harmony in our environment, we must establish it within ourselves." Then, as Troward indicates, we must act on it. Once you have found it, share it with others. Share it with the world, because it's only then that we can change and demonstrate who we truly are. It's only then that we can become the world that we choose to live in. Thank you.
Reverend Kate, thank you so much for the gifts of your message. It is a blessing to us as we navigate these times, for sure. Our closing hymn is number 343 in the Gray Hymnal, if you'd like to follow along as Penny sings for us.
This hymn is called "A Fire Mist and a Planet," and it has a couple of words in it that may require some explanation. One is near the beginning of the song, and that's saurian, S-A-U-R-I-A-N. That is kind of a generic term for lizards. And then near the end of the song is the word rood, spelled R-O-O-D, Jesus on the rood. The rood is the name for a cross that was used for crucifixion. A fire mist and a planet, a crystal and a cell, a starfish and a saurian, and caves where ancients dwell, a sense of law and beauty, a face turned from the sun. Some call it evolution, and others call it God. Haze on the far horizon, the infinite tender sky, the ripe rich tints of cornfields and wild geese sailing high.
Thank you, Penny. We'll now pause. At this time in our service, we invite any visitors who are with us today for the first time or people returning after a while if they'd like to introduce themselves. I think we know everyone on Zoom. Is there anyone who'd like to introduce themselves here in the sanctuary? If so, if you'd come to this microphone right there.
Good morning. My name is Linda Sterner, and I've been actually wishing to come here for probably 20 years. Since I heard about this program. I often come to the mountain in Highlands, and once I'm there, I don't leave until I go home. And so I just have never gotten down here. And so this weekend, we just thought it was a perfect time to come. So thank you for having us.
It's a joy to have you here.
And I'm kind of a ditto. I'm Beverly Cree. I've been working at the mountain for a couple of years, and also I've been wanting to come to this congregation for a long time. So and thank you, Bonnie, for inviting us to come with you this morning. It's a real joy to be here. I know several people in this congregation, so it's great to be part of it.
It is a great treat to have Mountain Friends here with us today. Our closing words are from the Commission on Common Worship. To walk purposefully in the light sheds truth, steadily in the openness justice creates, and compassionately in the warmth love radiates, shall advance us surely toward the good, and shall in the end make and fit companions for one another. Our chalice extinguishing is from the Reverend Brian Keeley. The chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in the minds and hearts and souls of each one of you. Carry the flame with you and share it with those you know, with those you love, and most especially with those you are yet to meet. Our closing circle and covenant. When we are together, we circle our round sanctuary and join hands in our closing circle and covenant. For now, those in the sanctuary may choose to join hands, while those of us on Zoom will join in spirit as we recite our covenant together. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and community is its goal. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So may it. Thank you for joining us today. Next Sunday, we welcome Reverend Ernie Mills with a sermon and song titled Dorothy, Toto, and the Heart's Desire. We invite those in the sanctuary to coffee hour downstairs and those on Zoom to continue the conversation.